Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 857, and today we're talking about setting standards. The standards of success, of achieving all the things that you would like out of life. Otherwise, that's just my bottle right there I hit, if you heard that in the mic, that if you don't set your standards, society, people in your life will begin to set them for you. If you think about it, that absolutely makes sense, because growing up, who set the standards for our life? Because standards are the things which are important to us. So in other words, our values, right? The values that was held within this container of our mind and our body, which was instilled upon us growing up. So in other words, if you had a high value for money growing up, like you lived in lots of affluence, you may treat money in a certain way. You might have a healthy relationship with it. Or maybe if you grew up in scarcity and poverty, you may actually have another kind of association, another value. Maybe it's fearful, maybe it's scary, maybe you have, I'm never gonna live in poverty, so you do the absolute opposite. But those standards were installed upon us based on our environment growing up, from usually it's our parents, but it could be the like teachers, it could be even growing up like society, that we set certain standards for ourselves. And if we carry on those standards, it will cause us to keep on repeating. We almost mirror, like life almost mirrors back the standards that we set ourselves, because that standard for what we want out of life or how we want to be in life, we start to look for it. We begin to look for that, and it kind of mirrors back to us. We delete, we distort and generalize based on that frame of view. So if your standard is low, as in you value yourself lower, as in I am not good enough, or I am not of value, or I'm not capable, well, of course, other people will be able to dictate that, because your values are not high enough, your standard or esteem is not high enough to be able to put out those strong boundaries. So it makes us very vulnerable if our standard of success is low, because other people will start to take advantage of it. And you'll probably know that. Like, if you don't have a high self-esteem right now, which many people don't in the world, so it means, number one, you're not alone. But if you do have that, you can probably go back in your mind and go, yeah, I can see where I've people pleased, or where I've tried to become a perfectionist, because I feel my standard is low, so I've got like over fulfill, over people please, over try to kind of please people. Or you may actually notice that the past, you've been mirroring certain relationships. Maybe the person who's not a good fit for you, maybe tolerating that mean boss, maybe not going for that job that you really, really want on your heart, but there's that part of you going, well, maybe I'm not good enough for it. And that causes a lot of issues. That causes us to feel worried, stressed, anxious, doubtful, really not fulfilling our potential. So how do we start to begin to change that? What can we do to be able to set up a different standard? Because right now, if our standard is low, that means society or people in our life are going to dictate that. You're going to go more and follow the crowd. You're going to do what is expected of you because society says so, or because your family says so, or because your partner says so. We need to be able to take a look in the mirror and go, actually, I need to take a stand. I need to take a stand for who I am as a person. Think about your outcomes. Think about the type of successes you want in life. Like, if you're not happy where you are with that present standard, and it could be with your health as well. I know that can be for me at times. Like, I really enjoy running, but is something that I need to keep on working upon when it comes to my health. Lose a few more pounds, get stronger, fitter, all of those types of things. But you've got to look in the mirror and go, am I really happy at this level of success? Because your standard will become your evaluation. Your evaluation will become your perception. And what you're perceived to be true, you project into your world. So what are you projecting as your standard? Be conscious of it. Like, usually it's just happening beneath the surface. Like, we don't really shine a light upon it. We don't really think about it. We become aware of maybe the symptoms of it, the consequence of feeling not good enough, and therefore I feel anxiety. I can be aware of that consequence because I feel anxiety or dread or worry throughout my day. Or you may know of the consequence because your financial situation isn't where you want it to be. Maybe you're in debt and getting more in debt, or maybe you get money but just spend money. Maybe you know the consequence of an unhealthy relationship. That is all there to be seen because that shows up. That's the mirror that is coming back at us. But if we want to be able to change that, what is mirroring back to us, we've got to change ourselves. So be conscious of the type of standards you've been setting. And I'm not trying to be mean by saying that you've been setting these standards to be in debt. You are setting the standards to have the bad relationships. I'm not saying that in a way. But there is a part of you, which I would say the unconscious mind in this case, which is setting and maintaining those standards. The standards that we decided upon at an unconscious level, based on the people or society or the events that we went through. And of course, that's good news though, because that means you have control of your standard of success. You don't have to be dictated by other people or society. You can stop that trend. You can stop that story. But in order to do so, you must consciously become aware of those standards. So you may look at every area of your life. Now, the typical ones are health, relationships, career, money, and then for others, it's going to be like personal development or maybe spiritual or religious. They're usually like the main of them. You can do subcategories of those, of course, because things are more unique. It could be specific, down and down and down and more specific. But as a general rule, you could probably weigh up those 4 or 5 or 6 categories and go, where am I setting those standards? Is my standard eating junk food? Is my standard sedation by eating or drinking too much? Is my standard, when it comes to my relationship, of attracting that kind of person? Where would you gauge yourself when it comes to having a high standard, like I want the best person in my life who's going to lift me up and I'm going to lift them up in the most beautiful, loving way because I'm worth it, compared to all the way down, say like a 0, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, and therefore these people are showing up in my life. And by relationship, like I said about kind of these categories, it could be your social friend group. It doesn't have to be just relationship, because sometimes if we don't feel good enough, we can actually attract friends who can take advantage. We can get great friends, by the way, who try to tell us differently, who always say, look, you're so much more than that person, or you deserve that job. So we can have the good friends as well, but sometimes we may attract friends which aren't really nurturing and supporting you and lifting you up. And you'll know those kind of people. Maybe you're more there for them than they are for you. Maybe when you have the times of conversations with them, you feel not lifted up and you kind of feel more let down by the end of it. But be conscious of these standards that you're setting, because those standards are becoming ingrained or are ingrained from years or decades, and you've got to become conscious of them. Don't run away from those standards. It's time to level up those standards. So ask yourself, well, if my standard in this category or more than one category of life or area of life or all of them is not where you want to be, consider where you want to be. Like, in order to know where you are, sometimes you got to know where you want to go to be able to see that difference, to be able to notice and observe even where the edges or the difference is. Because right now, this is my standard. This is what's showing up. So it's a bit hard to really see beyond that. So try to get clarity Try to get clear on where you want to be, because now you're going to bridge that gap or become aware of that space and ask yourself this question: what kind of beliefs do I have in this present situation compared to if I were to imagine in my mind the high standards of success versus standards where I look after myself, or I surround myself with good people, or my career or financial success? What kind of mindset, what kind of values will that future you be, or the you which has that high standard of success? Notice the differences, because now we know we've got this low standard as to where we are. Now we've considered where we want to be. Hallucinate as much as you can as if you had that success. What kind of standard would you be setting? What kind of things would you be saying? What kind of things would you speak into your life? How would you be nurturing? How will you be looking when you think of a relationship? The kind of person you'd like as a relationship or friendship group, and so on. What kind of job would that you have, and what kind of thoughts would get you to that place? Same thing for health, same thing for money, all of those things. Because maybe you're like, well, this present version of me, the lower standard of success and that I'm setting is like, money's a bad thing. It's the root of all evil. It comes and goes, or it just gets worse. Well, if you hallucinate the ideal you with a high standard of success, you may be saying different things. Like, money comes to me in known and unknown ways. I use money for good. I help people with it. I support people. I give to people because I just know it replenishes. Because that total different mindset, that thought set, that set of feelings as well, maybe the feelings of safety and abundance, maybe the love in a relationship, that lifting up once again. I know I'm jumping around all these topics because it is a generalized standard of success. And remember, what we do in one area of our life, we tend to do in many other areas. So be conscious of the standard you've been setting yourself. Don't be sedated by it. Don't get sedated by other things to try to avoid it. Don't buy into what people think of you and their opinions. Don't buy into what society thinks of you for a moment. Consider, this is where you presently are. This is where I presently want to be. And notice the differences. In order to become the person you want to be, you have to give up who you presently are. Now, I don't mean like give up everything about you, but you've got to be willing to give up who you are now, to sacrifice, to become the person you want to be. How long does that take? For some, it can be days, moments when you have that realization. Some, if we have big goals and dreams, it can take weeks, months, or years, like to make millions of dollars per year. There is a time process to it. But once you start to recognize those differences, you have the ability to do something about it. Now, how would I go about it? Well, I always say, try to find the person who can get you there. Because you're getting out your own way. They've done it. They're a success of it. So therefore, you can work with them, model them. You can communicate with them. They can transform you without you having to do other things. Like, in other words, figure out by yourself. But on top of that, we have like the hypnosis app. You listen to the hypnosis sessions when you think of the differences of those two people, the present you and the you want to be. Notice what kind of fears and doubts you have, and then look for a hypnosis session. Listen to it as you go to sleep or in the day, or look at the podcast, like the free section within the app. Or maybe one of the audio programs. Maybe set up a routine for one of those morning meditations, because what you do in the beginning of your day, you'll start to echo out throughout your day and more likely follow that same trend. And of course, there's many other ways of doing this: self-reflection, meditation, preserving unconscious learnings. I like hypnosis because to me, it gets to the root of the matter, because that's where the issue lives. But what we have to really do is to begin to set that standard. Sometimes I even say nothing less than this. That's my goal. Nothing less than this. And the reason why I say that to myself is usually I remember, I think I said this a while ago actually, that I had a certain level of success growing up. I had this real specific benchmark. Like, that's what it was going to be. And at school, it was trying to get the grade C. If I could only get a C, then I'd be happy. But the problem with that, I got C's or below because that was my standard of success. So of course I'm going to hit it or get less than it. Whereas I'm sure if I began to broaden that standard to maybe a B or an A, not on falsities or anything like that, but if I have that standard, now I've got to think, well, how am I going to get there? Like, I've got to up level. So if we think about that as an example, maybe when you think of your present standard, you get that or everything below, but when you step it up, you're going to get that and maybe a little bit less, but it's going to be sure better than the standard you've been setting yourself. It starts with you, it comes from you, you get to do the work. Remember, keep saying that sentence. I get to do the work, I get to work out, I get to live, I get to love, I get to raise my standard. I don't have to allow other people or society to set that for me. And it's going to be hard in the beginning, especially if you're doing this by yourself, but it is possible. If I can do it, other people can do it. It is absolutely possible. But it starts with you beginning to consider a different paradigm, to stretch yourself, to think of who do I need to become to get to be that person? What do I need to stop doing which isn't serving me? What can I be conscious of when it comes to the relationships, and how can I start to change that? What small steps can I do today which will become the big leaps tomorrow, next week, next year? All of those things will begin to happen. It just takes that bit of momentum, that consistency. And I always say discipline creates freedom. Freedom doesn't create discipline, but when you get the discipline, it will give you the freedom in abundance, in health, and relationships. So do the work and acknowledge the differences and go out and get it done. Just get it done no matter what it takes. Because you don't want to be echoing this present set of standards to maybe children in your life, like if you have children, because they will be modeling. They will see you as that example. And of course, if you don't have children, you don't want to get to the end of your life and go, oh my goodness, I set the bar way too low. I could have done so much more. I could have had like so much more happiness and excitement, rather this kind of guilt and grief that I did not live and love life. So if you start now, some people might be actually going, well, I wish I started this when I was a kid. Well, everyone's gonna think that. But it always reminds me of the best time to plant a tree is maybe X years ago, but the second best time is right now. You get the opportunity in every single moment to start to dictate a new theme, a new story. Say it out loud, declare it, decide it, write it down, put it everywhere in your place if need be. But declare that you're going to get there. This is your new standard. I'm going to get this or something better. And you never know, you may be surprised, but reality will start to mirror something back differently. For when you begin to have that new benchmark, you begin to create new assumptions about yourself and life, which are so much greater. Those become confirmations because you see them back and go, yeah, that's exactly why I want this. And those will also become your projections, and therefore you'll like mirror back more of the life, or even better than you can imagine, mirroring back to you. So let's get to it. Let's do what has to be done. It can be fun, it can be exciting, it could be mind-blowing when it comes to the results that you'll be getting. And of course, if you do need specific help and you're invested and ready to get this gone and get to do the work and want me to work with you through that, I do actually have an 8-week system where we get rid of the I am not good enough, the I am not worthy, and get you into a place of I am deserving and capable to have the life that you want, to have all those areas leveling up. If you want that personalized help, that customized experience, you can go to josephclough.info/talk. You'll fill out an application and then you'll book a time on our schedule. It'll be a one-to-one session, or it's not just a session, but it's like an evaluation. I like to think it's like I'm not a doctor, but when people go into these calls with us, we want to evaluate where you are, what is the problem here, and if we can solve it, we may invite you into the program. And we, of course, like I said, there's an investment there. We're very protective, and you got to do the work a couple hours a week, and we'll make sure we can support you each step along the way. And by we, you get to work with the people within my ecosystem, and the people in the group are just absolutely amazing as well. They lift each other up, they support one another, and that means we feel seen, heard, and felt. We're moving together as a group, and we call it a family as well. So you can go ahead and apply at josephclough.info/talk. But like I said, it's not the only way. There are many other ways out there. I just believe that is the best way, because that's what I do. So with that, my friends, I look forward to speaking to you on a future episode. Many thanks and goodbye.